Good afternoon and welcome into the Morning Burrito Podcast. I'm Michael.
And I'm Eric, and we did it right.
And he's already making fun of me. Like in the show intro song, he's already making fun of me.
Well, sometimes you think you hit record and it looks like it and it's not, and we do the whole show and we got to go back and go like, oh, really?
Yeah, I guess that's true.
All right. So I guess you know now that we're recording it.
Yeah, we're recording. It got that little red light down at the bottom there.
I can't see it. Your lights are too bright.
You're old.
No. Whatever.
You are. You're old. And drinking coffee.
I am old.
Hey,
coffee and happy.
By the way,
you're gonna push that button.
You will be proud of me this last week on Monday.
Good, because are people usually not proud of you?
Well,
do you need kudos today?
This will make you really proud. Like, if there's anything that I've done in 3 years since I've been at Herman.
When was your anniversary?
The 28th.
I mean, like to be here.
28th. Last Wednesday.
Oh.
Yep. I guess, yeah. No, 2 Wednesdays ago. 2 Wednesdays.
2 Wednesdays ago. Oh, well. Okay, so I'm late. Happy late anniversary.
Thank you. 3 years.
3 years.
I am very happy to be here.
Wow, that's 3 years. 3 years longer than you stayed anywhere else.
Ouch.
Okay.
You were talking in the office the other day about things that get me. That's one of those. Although I'm kind of over it at this point. Anyway, so my wife had a cracking migraine after our board meeting last week.
Yeah?
Okay, horrible. I'm surprised I didn't bring this up on the show last week, but she had this bad migraine during our board meeting. She had texted me while we were in board meeting, said she's going to bed early. I got home. My older daughter is sitting there watching Mary Poppins or something on the TV, and lights are all off in the house. And I get in there. My wife's crying, dealing with the migraine.
Oh, man.
I made her coffee.
You did. Do you know how?
I do now.
Oh.
I even because my wife is one of those people that grinds her own beans.
Yeah.
So I even ground the beans for her.
Wow. So
Fresh.
Claudia, if he did good, send us a text here and let us know. Rate it from 1 to 10. I'm just curious.
Now the truth is, she did get up, and because I had given her medication first, and she got up and she actually put the water in. But I could have figured that part out. I'm pretty sure that in the coffee maker,
always
I put the
more to the story. Okay.
But I made coffee, so I was pretty proud of myself.
No, you ground the beans.
No, I actually put the coffee in the filter inside the top, and
but you didn't get
brewed it.
But you didn't put the water in though. See, it's the ratio between water and beans that makes it together.
She said she was putting in 6 cups, which means 6 scoops of coffee.
Oh, okay. So Claudia, let us know. I'm just curious.
You should be proud of me.
I am proud of you.
I'm
proud you even touched it.
I didn't. It smells good. I just don't want to drink it.
Wow, we're making progress.
Anyway, today, as we talked about last week,
this is still the opener. No, let's get it rolling.
Yeah, as we talked about last week, this week we are going to spend this show recapping, reviewing, debriefing, if you will, Sabbatical. And so the title of today's episode is Sabbatiwhat Dose.
Sabbatiwhat Dose.
Yes. So we went through Sabbatiwhat the first time before your sabbatical to talk about what it is and why and all of that and what you were going to be doing. Now we're going to review all of that and see how actually it succeed in what you had initially said you were going to do. So stick with us. We will be right back on the Morning Burrito Podcast. All right, we are back. And so we're in Sabbatiwhat Dose, and I'm excited about this episode. I there's things that you've told me already, but I'm sure that there will be things that I will learn today.
There might be things I learned today
that we didn't know about Sabbatical.
Yeah.
So just to review before we get into what happened. What is the purpose of Sabbatical? Why did you do it? Just so we can make sure you fulfilled all of those requirements when we get through the things that you did.
Yeah. So sabbatical is there's lots of different meanings for sabbatical. This was not a book writing sabbatical. It was not a study sabbatical. It wasn't going back to pick up a college class sabbatical. This was a re-engaging sabbatical with between me and my kids, me and my family, and me and the Lord. It was a refreshing time between me and my kids, my wife and the Lord, and I would say that was accomplished. But that was sabbatical. I mean, we don't. Pastors, our churches don't really understand sabbatical because we don't really take sabbaticals that often, and most pastors move before their seventh year. I mean, so they don't really get a sabbatical. I didn't point you out on that, but
That's what you were saying.
okay,
You were
And,
implying it.
So, it's a learning thing for the church. So, sabbaticals for the church to be sabbaticaled as well, to learn things and to grow close to the Lord in some things, hear things differently, when you hear from a different speaker. So I think we accomplished that. So now we're bringing the sabbatical church and the sabbatical pastor back together so we can move forward and allow some avenues to be open for Jesus to transform lives. So all of my sabbatical planning was totally around, just re-engaging and listening to the Lord. So between the fishing, there was a whole lot of reading that took place. And I read this book, Jesus is the Question, 307 questions Jesus asked and 3 that he answered. It's a decent book. I wouldn't say it's a rock solid book. So yeah, we're showing that on camera for those of you that are not viewing this today. But if you're looking for a pretty
Martin Copenhaver.
pretty simple read. I mean, it's not a theological book at all. It really does pick out. He picks out why Jesus talked the way he talked and made correlations that I had never really made before on some of the questions that Jesus answered. And so it was a really good book that way to go through. So I actually finished this while I was at the monastery for a week. And so that was good. I think I'm on my third time reviewing it now, maybe my second time. I lose track. I'm gonna like retirement. It was good. So yeah, so sabbatical was about that. Some people are like, well, why does he go away for 10 weeks and do these things? And just say, what, walk in your pastor's shoes 24 hours a day, and especially through pandemic years. And I was not in a spot where I was suicidal or depressed or full of anxiety. I wasn't looking for a new church. I'm not looking for a changing career. I'm not looking for different staff people. We are looking for a new staff person, but not to replace you. So, or
Good news.
or anybody else. So
Good
I just
news.
thought I'd let that out.
I didn't get fired at board meeting last week,
No,
so that's good news.
Sometimes pastors come back and they just clean house because there's a new vision, a new energy, and that's not, as far as staff goes, not. But anyway, so it wasn't any of that. There's no midlife crisis going on. As I talked about,
No
Sunday.
Corvette.
No Corvette. I'm not trading my wife for another wife. Nothing like that. Marriage is strong. Marriage healthy and good in all areas. But being able to just really focus on my spiritual life in a way to where I can give, because I think when people come to church, so church, you want to know why pastors take sabbatical is because we believe that you deserve the best meal you can have when you give your time, energy, and end up either by accident. Well, there is no accident, but when you end up on this campus, you deserve to be fed. And sometimes pastors get to the point where it's like, I feel like the well is dry, which is okay. I mean, sabbaticals are okay. What's not acceptable is if you allow your well to run dry and you don't do anything about it. And that's not just for pastors, that's for you as well that are watching. If your spiritual wells run dry, your problem, your fault, do something to change it. It's not acceptable just to keep letting it go. So that's a nutshell of sabbatical.
You went to several different locations.
Yeah.
So-
Did a lot of traveling, man.
Yeah.
It was great.
You were at home a total of like 3 weeks out of 10, I think is what you said, right?
Yeah, not quite 3 weeks, I think. Not
Just
quite 3
short,
weeks.
just short of 3
Yep.
weeks. So, I mean, you were really gone most of that 10 weeks.
Yep.
We'll go through some of the highlights, things that you did, but you crossed many state lines. You were in the Midwest for a little while. You spent some time in Idaho, spent some time in South Dakota and Wyoming, Alaska,
Missouri, Michigan.
on the coast of Oregon for a while. So lots of cool things we had here at the church. Lots of great speakers, from evangelists
Great speakers.
to professional conference speakers. A guy who runs a great men's ministry, Jim Ramos, Men in the Arena. If your husband or you as a dad or a husband need some encouragement, Men in the Arena, check them out. They are awesome. Great podcast he does every week. So I would definitely encourage you to do that. Had your protege come and preach, student from back in the day, which was great. we talked about last week. You called us out for not wearing suits,
Right.
and had to do that. And then several of your friends who are chaplains. So all kinds of different perspectives while you were gone in the messages. And as we started doing these last couple of weeks, we're in a series on Sunday morning called Coffee Break Reflections, which is kind of a longer form of what we're doing here, where we've actually not only heard from you, but we've begun to hear from people in our church who had God speak to them in the sabbatical time, which is exactly what we wanted to happen.
How cool is that? I mean, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
that's
that's
cool.
It's not, and again, it reinforces it's not just about the pastor and the pastor's family. It's also about us as a church. What did we get out of it? I gave a sermon on the 25th of September. Go back and check that out. But God spoke to me about things over sabbatical, some pretty significant stuff. So if you're not from our church and you go to another church and your pastor has been there like 30 years and has never taken a sabbatical, push your church board, push your pastor to take a sabbatical, get them out of the building for a while and let them refresh and re-engage with God. And I think your church and them as a pastor will be better for it if they do it.
Yeah. And a lot of churches, their pastors go on sabbatical and the church doesn't sabbatical.
Yeah,
the church whines and complains, and honestly, it's legit.
You literally came back and had no real fires,
Zero.
like nothing.
Zero. I think I had one grumpy person.
Were you kind of surprised by that?
Oh, I was very surprised. Only because I'm looking from a senior pastor's point of view. Not surprised because I expected it. I worked really hard at planning and trying to foresee things and make sure. Communicate the vision of what you're doing. I thought we did that, and I think when I came back and found wow, really 483 emails, select all, delete. It was really honestly that simple.
So if you're watching and you do conferences for pastors, you probably want to hire this guy to come and preach or teach a seminar or workshop or something on how to do sabbatical right for pastors.
My wife said I should write a book. I was like,
honestly, we have friends who have done sabbaticals, and I don't think it's gone as well as this one has gone for us. So I count that as a win. That's a great thing.
Yeah, one thing that I've heard in the review is we gave a bio sheet of all of the speakers that we had lined out for we have 9 speakers out of the 10 weeks? Because you did the bookends, you did the front end. So,
and we had 2 that did 2 weeks.
Yeah. So we had 8 or 9 speakers come, and we gave the bios out, and some of my co-pastor friends, they're like, you did that? I was like, well, yeah, because I want the people to know that we've invested in them to give them the best quality that we can give during sabbatical, and let them hear things from an evangelistic point of view, which they don't hear that way from you and I.
Not often.
Not often. So I heard good reviews. People liked reading, knowing that when they get out of bed to come on Sunday morning, there's been some thought into it. It's been very intentional on what we're doing, and not just that we have speakers coming, but we've been intentional on letting them know you're valued, right? And I just think that carries a lot during sabbatical.
Well, and the truth is too, having been here for the entire sabbatical, obviously, and listened to all the speakers, none of them said anything that was groundbreaking or new. Some of them presented things that are old in new ways, for sure. But sometimes they can say the same things that we can. And it just comes across differently because it's not us.
Right.
And
we can say the word tithe and nobody gives.
Well,
they say the word tithe and we get like millions of bucks.
Well,
not really, but
there's even a difference. We talked about this before. The difference between what you say on stage and what I say on stage can be received completely different. But all right, all that to be said, let's get into some of the things that happened over your sabbatical. So let's talk about the fun stuff. What are the highlights that those were really fun experiences? Things.
Okay, so to start it off, honestly, one of the fun highlights was our son, our 21-year-old, went to Honduras on his first work and witness trip and built a church. That, from a pastor's perspective, that was like, it could have ended sabbatical that way, but that really is a highlight to see your kids involved in ministry, not because he didn't have a parent there.
Right.
Like I
wasn't. He went by himself.
Yeah, I wasn't the youth pastor that showed up. I wasn't the pastor that showed up. I wasn't like the pastor daddy that showed up. He went by himself, and that was just like really, really cool. So He also in Alaska outfished me. I think we said that last week. His big 73-pounder when it comes to his big halibut compared to mine.
If you're friends with him on Facebook, he's got the picture of it.
It's beautiful.
It's legitimately almost as big as Gideon
beautiful.
is.
I think I can probably find it here. Actually,
you had it up on your iPad.
Check
there.
this out. Those of you that are like on TV right now or whatever you're watching, I feel like a televangelist. I don't know. Is that
went away?
Is that where? I don't know if you can see it.
You gotta hit the button.
What? Oh man. Okay.
There you
We'll
go.
figure out technology.
Yeah. So that one right there, that's him. He's standing next to it. Look how big. I mean, that's just.
It's huge.
That's crazy.
It's a monster. So
and you caught all the rest of that fish. Not to mention all of the king salmon and coho salmon or whatever.
Yeah, coho, sockeye. Yeah, silvers.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's been great. Over 200 pounds of fish. So,
which, by the way, we're 2 weeks in now from you being on sabbatical, and I haven't seen any come my way.
Any what?
Fish.
I've shown you all these pictures.
No. Like fish has not come my way.
You hear how he's whining about things.
I think after 10 weeks of being here and leading the church well, and no fires to put out when you got home, I should get some fish.
Yeah. I took you bass fishing. You didn't even catch anything. So
that's after sabbatical. We don't need to talk about that.
See, I
we need to leave that one out.
I
of
can
the
give you
narrative.
fish now, and you won't appreciate it because you've had to ask for it. See,
that's true.
So you asked before you received, and now it's like I don't know.
Well, the Bible says, "Ask and you shall receive."
That is true, and you have not because you asked not. So okay, I guess we go that way.
Okay, anyway, so fun stuff, fishing and Honduras. What else?
Yeah, I just think just the whole idea of traveling and watching people, just lots of laughs that way. Probably one of the funniest things is I learned what a lactate station is in an airport.
For women who are breastfeeding?
Yeah, I'm walking through the airport and there's this booth, and it's like literally it's like those old photo booths that there's no curtain on it. It's actually a solid door, and it's just a solid
box.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it is. Anyway, so and on the front of it, it's got this abstract artwork of a lady nursing her baby and the lactate laboratory. And I'm like, look at it, lactate laboratory. What is that? And station. I think one said laboratory, the other ones all said station. So, which makes a whole lot more sense. I'm not sure what goes on in the laboratory, but. Anyway, so I had to get my picture by it. I mean, it was one of those comical moments because I'm like, I don't understand. And then my kids that were with me were like, who would even use that? And then here comes a lady from a different country, all dressed in her robe and garb and all that. We're like, that's probably the one. That's probably, I mean, because American women, I'm telling you, they don't need to go hide in a box. I mean, they just anyway. That's a whole different topic. It was interesting anyway. But the monastery we went to, that was kind of fun. Trying to live in silence for part of your day, strange. But one of the strangest things that it was is I'm an extrovert. I like to talk to people, or at least say hi to people when we pass each other. Not there. It's like there's not even a desire. And I learned how quickly it was that you can get out of a relationship with people to where you really don't even care to talk to them anymore, because then it became habit. We were there all week. By the end of the week, I was like, I didn't want to talk to anybody. Didn't feel like I needed to talk to anybody. I mean, that's probably more accurate. I didn't feel like I needed to. So yeah, that was weird. I learned that nuns eat a lot of pasta and chocolate. Those were the two. Almost every meal had chocolate, and then most every meal had, maybe not breakfast, had pasta. But anyway,
Interesting.
Yeah. What was the question? I forgot. What was funny?
Fun stuff.
Fun stuff. It was really fun trying to catch fish without any kind of lure or bait. It's called flossing in Alaska, so we did that. I'm like, I know. When they said we are going to go flossing, I'm like, seriously? So that was weird. And you didn't snag the fish. You actually caught it in their mouth. And I learned that fish do not, in the Kenai River, they don't eat in the river. They just go there to strictly spawn. So you don't need bait because they're not hungry. It's this hook that hits them in the nose, and they bite it when they go to bump it to move it out of their way. And I'm like, oh. So that was fun. We had a lady fall out of the boat. That was kind of hilarious. We're in Kenai River, and she's trying. We're up on a bank, and she tried to get out of the boat, and she, boom, kersplash. I mean, and that kind of. I mean, we're out in the wilderness area, and so she was done for the day. So, and then let's see what else. I don't know. I'll probably think of more.
Did you do any skydiving?
Did not do any skydiving. In fact, we were going to go on a hot air balloon ride at one point, but my wife's back was not at the healed in the right spot yet to quite do that. So we
flying any helicopters?
Float plane. Didn't do a helicopter, but we did float plane. That was kind of cool. It was awesome.
What was so? We're going to go into surprises now. I already know the answer to this question, so I know I can ask it. It's a good way to segue into surprises, but. What surprised you about flying in a float plane?
It was so smooth. Is that what I was supposed to say?
That's what I was expecting.
Yeah, smooth. I mean, the takeoff. I mean, it's loud because of the motor of the plane, but it was like you had no idea. I mean, it was like no bumps. I mean, it was smooth. And then the landing, just as smooth. It got really loud when the pontoons hit the water, but man, smooth, and it was a quick takeoff and a really quick stop, and it was awesome. I'd go again in a heartbeat.
What else surprised you on your trip?
So speaking of the pontoon right down the plane, is that when we showed up, they actually get out these giant super soakers and they stick them down in the pontoon, and they're sucking water out of the pontoons. I'm thinking, that's probably not the airplane I want to ride on, but it was. That's what they put us on. So that was a surprise. I didn't know that pontoons leaked. So there was that. What else? What was it? What surprised me?
Yeah, what surprised you on your sabbatical?
So
things that to be more defining, like things that you did not expect to happen on your sabbatical that were pleasant surprises.
Yeah, pleasant surprise.
Or just things that you were like, man, I didn't know that was going to happen.
Yeah, so we're fishing in Lake Michigan, and I have my son and my daughter with me on that one, and you're paying big money for these charters, and so you're expecting at least things to run smoothly, and we got out there and we were like 5 miles offshore. We just got the downriggers down. Those of you that fish, you know what I'm talking about. And the captain drove over a net, which he should know these things. I mean, he's a 20-year veteran, with his boat, and he should know. Anyway, these downriggers are on steel wires, and it caught the top wire of the net, and started dragging the boat down on the stern on the back, and it was just us three on the boat plus two of the hand decks or deckhands, and that was not a good way to start our fishing adventure in week number 1.
So was the boat doing this thing?
Not quite straight up and down, but it was there wasn't much freeboard on the backside there for a while, and they actually had to cut the cable, but and then he about lost his finger. It was kind of like it was bloody and yuck, and anyway, but so there was that. That was week 1 of fishing that way. So
so let me get this straight. So there's a net down in the water. I would imagine there's buoys to denote that there's a net in the water.
Only
right?
on each end.
So right? He would know where it's at. You would think, right?
Right, but they were not. And I'll admit, they were not very well marked buoys. They weren't your typical long net buoys. I mean, they're your long line stuff. It wasn't those kind of buoys. It was really just like a jug of water,
And
kind of thing.
And it wasn't a net that he put out. I assume.
No, but it was actually his office manager's husband who put it out.
That's ironic.
On a whole different company, right? So, but anyway, yeah, he wasn't happy.
So that would go under the category of things that didn't go quite as planned.
Yeah, quite as planned.
But what were some other surprises? Things that were good that just you didn't expect to happen, but were good surprises.
Yeah, so I didn't expect to have so much, I guess, river time like on the boats. I mean, I knew we were going to be fishing and stuff, but just the surprise of this is kind of cool. Even when we weren't fishing, we were in just some gorgeous areas, and I didn't really put all that together. I was more focused on I wanted to fish for these kinds of fish because I never get to fish for these kind of fish, and so that was a nice surprise that way. We did have a surprise Chinook fish in Alaska. We weren't allowed to fish for Chinook in the Kenai Peninsula at that time, but we're fishing for silvers and light gear. It's light tackle, and this big monster Chinook gets on this guy's, wasn't my pole again, but on another guy's pole, and got up to the boat, and we were have to release it because we couldn't keep it, but we didn't get to see it. It broke off right when it got to the boat. But hilarious part was it porpoised, which is kind of an up and down thing, and he was showing the side of himself that had the big hook hanging out of his mouth, and just it was kind of like the fish is laughing at us, mocking us. So that was kind of funny. I mean, that was something I would see on TV and wish we would have been videoing. But the lodge, we went to a lodge in Sisters. That was pretty cool. Ended up being a bed and breakfast. I didn't know that. I didn't know it was a bed and breakfast. I didn't know it was a lodge that I had passed for the last 20 years. And it's a pastor's respite, and it's top notch, beautiful, gorgeous. And they said that there was no fish in the pond, or there might be a few fish in the pond that
you scored.
were there, but we scored 19.5-inch trout, all day long. So that was pretty cool. That was a nice surprise. The coast, went fishing on the coast, spent some time on the coast with the kids. That was nice. I did not expect such nice weather, actually. I mean, it was a glass ocean, just gray skies, and usually when it's gray and fog, the ocean is flat. But then we happened to be in a blue pool, blue sky over us. Couldn't see horizontally, but vertically we could look up and it was all blue. It was really cool. That was a cool little blessing. Kind of like we didn't plan that. Branson, I learned that I could actually handle some country music. Yeah, I could actually handle country music. But I got called up on the stage for a magic guy that we went to see, and he called me up on stage, and I got to. He lays his lady down, on a table and stuff, and they're not. I mean, they were actually dressed very appropriate. I mean, not like what I was afraid we'd get into. So very appropriate. But he said, "Hey, just go ahead and grab her by the ankles and strap her down." And so I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I'm strapping her down. I mean, she was strapped. I mean, I did it good. I did it tight. It was legit. And he ended up sawing her in half. We pulled her apart. Have no idea how he did that because I don't know. I mean, I was standing right there. I have no idea how that happened. But anyway, I went and sat down, and then he was going to call up me and my wife for another thing, but he asked the girl I was sitting next to what the relationship was, and it's like, well, I'm his daughter, and so he moved on to somebody else. So, but anyway, that was a little awkward moment because he was looking for a husband and wife deal. So. I don't know, but I guess those are a few things.
What about you had told me, and I think it's just a funny story, the fish and chips while you were in.
Oh, yeah.
Things that didn't go quite as planned on.
Not quite as planned, yeah. We're fishing for halibut, so Gideon says, Dad, we should really splurge and go for halibut fish and chips. When we're done, I mean, we're just dog tired, and we're like, yeah, okay, let's do that. We'll splurge for that.
What was your second option? Like, what was your other option? Cod. No, I mean, like, if you didn't eat out, what were you going to have to eat? Like, what'd you have?
We had peanut butter and jelly sandwiches on a bagel.
So not really the greatest option.
No. And I think we had, we had like Pop-Tarts or something with the peanut butter and jelly and grapes, I think. So, yeah, it wasn't quite the lunch. So we go to this restaurant, and, it was like a $10 difference between halibut and cod. And, my son, he's a good son. He said, Dad, let's just go get cod. And I'm like, we didn't fish for cod. We fished for halibut. We're going to eat halibut, so we... this is sabbatical. This is a bucket list. So we went and got the halibut, and I'm thinking this is really good. This is
probably
good.
Come as big.
Yeah, I'm thinking, here we are. The
clumps of
we just
fish.
pulled over 100 pounds of halibut off the ocean just for us, right? It's like great. So I don't know, for like $30 we get this skewer that is probably 8 inches long, and it's got like 4 little nuggets on it. I mean, like. Maybe McDonald's chicken nugget size nuggets of halibut and about 24 fries. And I was like, that's it? That's all. I thought there'd at least be like 3 or 4 skewers of them, but Nope, that just one skewer a piece. Oh,
We have all this fish right out here.
I
Can
know
you
we got
just-
100 pounds.
Can you fry that up?
Sitting in the cooler, and we just spent $75 on basically 4 little nuggets.
That wouldn't make up one fillet.
Not even one. Not even one. You know, one of the other surprises is we ended up having a church van that we borrowed to drive, and the pastor called and said, "Yeah, he's still looking for a rig to get around Alaska," and I said, "Sure." And he said, "Well, the church van, you can use the church van. It leaks oil, so you have to kind of watch the oil." And it's like, "Oh, yeah, we can do that." But it just came back. It just came back the night before from junior high camp, which those of you that know junior hires, they kind of have an odor to them. And
So the van had the
so
odor.
the van had the junior high odor in it, and it had no windshield wipers. I mean, they worked, but there was like no rubber on the wiper, and it was just downpouring rain, and we're driving on these 2-lane Alaskan roads, and I was like, this is not my idea of fun at that point, 'cause I have no idea where I'm even going. Anyway, so we stopped, got some Rain-X, and blah blah blah. And anyway, so that was kind of a fun little adventure.
What about the hamburger joint
Hamburger joint. Oh, the burger bus bus joint. So
that Gideon so strongly desires?
yeah, he's gonna have to go back to Alaska himself and do that. But it was an old school bus that they had kind of built into the side of this dirt bank, and it was just gross. It was dirty. It was overgrown. Had some wacky weed, I think, growing around the roof, and I mean, it was just not the place. But you know what? It smelled good. Lots of people were there. But I'm like, I can't do that, man. I just can't do it. So we go to a grocery store, and to buy some more Pop-Tarts or something. And there's a guy in front of us checking out, and he's wearing a Burger Bus shirt. And Gideon's like, "Check out the shirt, Dad. We need to go." I was like, "Yeah, no, we didn't go." But anyway, so that's
Is that in Kenai?
Yeah, that was actually in the little town of Kenai. Yeah, where that was. But
Well, if you're ever in Kenai, make sure you check out the Burger Bus.
Go to the Burger Bus. Yeah, it's right next to the.
And then you can message us and say, "Hey, you missed out on a really good opportunity to have a great burger."
Yeah, or take a picture of yourself in the ER. So
With diarrhea.
yeah, with food poisoning. So
All right. So we've got about 13 minutes or so,
Okay.
10 to 13 minutes of the show left. So let's finish the show out talking about some things that you learned, because honestly, the fun stuff is great, and I'm glad you had a great time. But if that's all it was, then sabbatical wouldn't have been worth anything based on what we talked about at the
Right.
beginning. So what are some of the nuggets? Pardon the pun, since we just talked about nuggets of halibut.
I see what you did there.
What are the nuggets of wisdom that God gleaned to you throughout your 10 weeks of sabbatical?
So I think one thing is happened to the monastery. Actually, we did. People are like, "You went to a monastery," and then most people have the reaction of like, "Oh, okay, that's cool." It's kind of like that's what pastors do, and I'm just saying, pastors don't go hang out with people at those kind of places.
I don't know that would be something I would want to do.
And actually, it wasn't. You might. We may go as a staff to do this. So, but during that, what I learned is like, I learned a lot about the Catholic faith, and I'm so thankful for the faith that I have in the church that I'm part of. I don't want to slam the Catholic Church at all. That's not what this is. But I learned some things about my own faith and how full our faith is based on what I was able to see there and be part of. We did 3 different prayer services a day. We went to every one of them. Sharon and I, we did that. We went and we did not participate in communion. We didn't feel like that was right for us. We learned that we could say and sing the Psalms the way that they would sing them. And we could repeat a lot of the readings that they would say. But when it came to praying to Mary, it was like we learned that it doesn't matter what setting we're in. We can't do that. So that was that. But I also learned that they don't say the whole Lord's Prayer when they say the Lord's Prayer. They don't put the ending on about God's power and all of that, forever and ever, amen. But the part of forgive your debtors, that's kind of where they ended. And so I guess I dealt with things that were ministry hurts from the past. People I thought I had dealt with in my ministry really came to just kind of slap me in the head. And the Lord's like, so you have to forgive them so I can forgive you. And I'm like, Lord, we already dealt with these people. And he's like, yeah, maybe not. So sitting there in amongst all of these sisters, singing these psalms back and forth. So the Lord spoke. So even in the quietness of the monastery, that was pretty cool. And then I learned that this book that I'm reading, it has this quote in there, and it's not really a quote. It was more of a thought. But this is what it says. I just want to read it to you. It says, talking about Jesus is much different than expressing devotion. That's like one line out of this entire book. But talking about Jesus is much different than expressing devotion. And I'm like, well, man, we talk about Jesus all the time. And I think most Christians, and those of you who are watching, you probably do talk about God, talk about faith, talk about Jesus, but do you really talk about the devotion part? And one of the questions is Jesus asked, who am I? And we can talk about who Jesus is, but what's our devotion to the who am I? What's our devotion to the I am? So that came out of that was kind of a theme that kind of just followed me through sabbatical, because I finished this book kind of early on in the sabbatical, and what I came out with is it's kind of like we talked about loved ones, but this is more like sending a love letter. I mean, I can talk about people I love, but if I send you a love letter, I'm really devoted, right? I'm really committed and stuff. So that was good. I also think one of the things I learned was out of John 1 verse 38, Jesus asked the question, "What do you want?" In one version it says, "What is it you're looking for?" And he's talking to his disciples. He had just done something. Jesus had just done some things in his ministry, and he's walking away, and he's wanting to go by himself. And here the disciples are in John chapter 1, and they start following him. And when Jesus realizes it, he turns around to them and he says to them, "What are you looking for? What do you want?" And they're like, "Well, we just kind of want to see where you're staying. Where are you going? What is it you're going to be doing?" And what Jesus says to them is, "Okay, well, you just come with me and come see." And that's kind of where my sabbatical was. It's like, I think God was asking me, "What do you want out of sabbatical? Okay, come with me and let's see where you go." And just camped out with Jesus that way. And I think sabbatical really showed my heart the idea that being planted, I preached this on Sunday a little bit, just being planted with the Lord where the Lord wants you to be, and stop looking at culture, stop looking at, the poor woes of our world and even our own personal life, and realize that God says, I planted you where you are, but let me put the nourishment in you, and in order to do that, you got to point your life in the direction of the Lord. And even though as your pastor, I try really hard to keep my life pointed to the Lord, but that slow creep, right? Kind of it sets in, and before you know it, it's like, wow, why am I so exhausted in life? Well, it's because I'm not really maybe spending authentic, real, legitimate time with the Lord and telling him what I want. Because Jesus, by asking the question, "What do you want?" he's wanting to know, what do you want? And I shared a board meeting last week about blind Bartimaeus. He is a beggar and he's blind, and Jesus asked him, "What do you want? What do you expect? What do you want from me?" And I think everybody would say, "Well, he wants to see. He's blind, of course. Heal him." And
and ultimately, that's what he did want.
Right, that is ultimately what he did want. But Jesus is asking the question and not just assuming. And I think as Christians, we do a whole lot of assuming. And as pastors, I think we do a whole lot of assuming. We assume we know what people need. Yep. So we make programs and we put energy. We drink a lot of coffee.
Some of us.
Or child's hot chocolate. And we do that, right, with the assumption that, well, we know what you need. And what we need to be doing is asking, what do you need? Because then we know better how to pray. And so I came out of sabbatical going like, I need to be asking the question that Jesus asked, what do you need? I found out that, as I reviewed it, I do ask the question, what do you need from me? From people. Where do you expect me? Where do you want me to be in this situation? But I'm not asking it in a way of I guess, them responding to really tell me what they need more than you tell me where's my place. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's why Jesus asked the question. Jesus asked the question because he wants to meet you where you are, and so that's just a little twist in my heart and thought process. I think of I want to meet you where you are, but ultimately Jesus got to meet you where you are. So how can I help you get there? What is it you need from Jesus, so I can help you. Not from the Jesus, I know.
The Jesus.
So those are just a few things. I think out of sabbatical that that I learned. I learned that I didn't learn it. It was
Reinforced,
confirmed that I really believe my family is tracking with the Lord the way they should be. And I don't mean perfect, right? I mean should be is continually growing, continually having relationships and conversations with the Lord. So that was really good. One of the things, and I still haven't completed all of this yet. Just with timing and stuff, you would think after 10 weeks you'd have plenty of time to do things, but there's just not enough time. But sharing my testimony with my family, with my kids, so there's no connecting the dots and no trying to figure out, man, was Dad, what was Dad like before he was a Christian, and what did transformation look like in his life, and so that came out of our pastor's retreat we went on a few months back, and so it was really good. I shared with some of my kids that part of my life, and it was good. So I got to hit another one or two yet, but yeah.
So as we close, we've talked a lot about in this podcast and also just in the church, generally speaking. We had pre-pandemic, we had pandemic, and now we're in what I think it would be reasonable to say we're in post-pandemic times now. What if anything has changed for you, or have you learned by being away from the church, at least your home church here, for 10 weeks?
What have I learned?
What have you learned, or what has, again, maybe it's something that was confirmed to you, but what have you gleaned about the church post-pandemic?
So I think I gleaned that it was easier actually to minister in the church setting during pandemic than it is post-pandemic. And the reason being is relationship. Pandemic killed relationship, and I don't think relationships in the church have picked back up.
And it's easier to have no relationships if you're doing Zoom and online because you're not in relationship physically anyway.
Right.
Now we're back together and the relationship's not there, but we're trying to be back together, which makes things hard.
Right. And I think I see there's a frustration amongst Christians on trying to answer the question of why are people not coming back? And I think sabbatical helped me get past that and go the Lord's like, there's so many lost people out there. Focus on the lost people, those that are still kind of checked out, with the pandemic. Pray for them, have compassion for them, but focus on the lost. So our church, we love you. If you're not plugged back in, we love you. Jump in somewhere. But even our president says the pandemic's done. So either get in, or just know that we're praying for you and we'll welcome you whenever you come back. But our focus is those that are before us, that we haven't met yet, those that are lost, those that are hurting, that don't know Jesus. That's our focus. And you know what? Relational is huge. We're created for relationship. We're created for each other. And I just think post-pandemic kills that, which hurts churchmanship. And this is a whole different podcast,
sure,
right?
Yeah.
But we're going to be looking for ways that we can have a touch moment with people, encourage our people to get back engaged with relationship and with physical face-to-face stuff, whether it's at potlucks or going through. Well, I'll just throw it out there. November 3rd, which is I believe a Thursday night. The Seventh-day Adventist Church in town, as a plug for them, they're doing their walk through Bethlehem, which they haven't done since the church built or burned down. So this will be their first time back doing it, and they're already doing a great job at promoting it. So Hermnaz, our night to go is November the 3rd, and we want to just show up at one time and go through this. You can only go through in small groups of 10 or 12 anyway. But we're just going to cycle through, during that hour and whatever. It's a 20-minute walk. It's a 20-minute event, and then you can sit around and you can drink their refreshments and hot ciders and donuts and whatever they have, cookies. But we're going to do that. That's just a relationship thing. It's a community thing. So mark on your calendar. It's family friendly. Come on out. I think 6:00 is our time that night, but get on the website. It'll be on there. You'll check it out. But so we're looking for relationship ways, right? And I know pajamas are big on Sunday morning and at Walmart. So I'm saying you can go to Walmart, but you can come to church in your jammies. But let's get offline. Let's get back in person. Let's have some relationship.
The other thing that I would just throw out there as we finish, Fall Fest is coming up. For those of you who live in Umatilla or Morrow counties, Halloween is always a difficult holiday for Christians. I think we struggle with that line. Where is the line for us? What can we do? What can't we do? The good news is with our church, with Fall Fest, you don't have to worry about that line. Come and participate, enjoy connecting with our community. Family friendly, safe place to be on Halloween night, 5 to 7 on that Monday, and we have a great Dr. Seuss train trip for the kids, and under the black lights.
Well,
games.
It's a walk-through train.
It's a walkthrough, yes,
Right,
not a literal train.
Okay,
but yeah, it's essentially a train ride, quote unquote, through Dr. Seuss land. So it'll be great. You see some Dr. Seuss characters. Got some great people making some great trunks. So you have candy for the kids, hay rides, cotton candy at the end. So it's going to be a great time. Again, 5 to 7 on October 31st. As far as we're aware, the only church doing it on Halloween here in town.
Oh, really? Okay.
As far as we
Good.
know. Not saying that's exclusive, but we haven't seen anything else out there about happening on Halloween. So we are excited about that. And so please get plugged in and find a church home if you don't live around here. Church is the greatest institution that there is. So get involved. God uses it in powerful ways.
Yep. So join us as we bring the sabbatical church and the sabbatical pastor back together, and join us for our coffee breaks.
Yeah, and this last Sunday, by the way, just props to you. Really excited. Had 2 students on Sunday to do coffee break reflections, and I am leaving tomorrow, to take students to a call conference. Really excited about that. Again, change during sabbatical.
Called into ministry, possibly.
So really great stuff. So We'll see you guys next week on the Morning Burrito Podcast.